Hello there, my name is Pastor Buck Wilford. I'm the pastor here at Brunswick Community Church. We're located right in the Rito's Bakery Plaza at 1930 Pearl Road. We have church at 10 a.m. on Sundays and Bible study at 6:30 p.m. on Thursdays. We also have good Christian education hour at 9 a.m. Sundays if you want to come a little early. We're a church that loves people and we love God. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to just be a part of your life as well too. We're focused in on preaching the Bible. I do it verse by verse, expository style. We hold to the 5 solas. We believe strongly that we're saved only by grace alone, through faith alone, through Christ alone. And it's all to the glory of God alone. And the only thing we hold as infallible and inerrant and strongly adhere to is the scriptures alone. We'd love to see you out here. We'd love to have you come visit. Thank you so much.
Is well with my soul, my sin know the bliss of this glorious thought, my sin not in part but the whole is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well with my soul, with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the faith shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul.
Amen. All right, let's go to 349, 349. Love before the dawn of time, chosen by my Maker, hidden in my Savior. I am His, and He is mine, cherished for eternity. When unstained with guilt and sin, He is there to lift me, heal me and forgive me, gives me strength to stand again, stronger than I was before. So with every breath that I am given, I will sing salvation's song, and I'll join the chorus of creation, giving praise to Christ alone. All the claims of Satan's curse lifted through His offering, satisfied through suffering, all the blessings He deserves, poured on my unworthy soul. So with every breath that I am given, I will sing salvation's song, and when mountains fall. Christ will shine forever, lost in fading splendor. Earth and heaven will bow in awe, joining in salvation's song.
Good hymns right there, good truths, all backed by Bible verses. I could name it to you. Good solid stuff. But today we're in Ecclesiastes 1, 12 to 18. Next week we'll be in chapter 2. I think we're going to be in chapter 2 for 3 weeks. All right, there we go. I even picked a picture out to put on here. I put a picture of a fella who, you know, I kind of tried to grab that old sculpture, the Thinker. You know, it's got the guy with his hand there. But like with something that we could kind of relate to, with like stress, with sorrow. And because there's a verse today that says, with wisdom comes sorrow. You know, with the more you know, the more grief you have. And we're going to really see, what does that mean? And here's like a picture of a modern day fella looking out the window of a bus or a train or a plane or wherever he's at. And it just looks like, you know, it looks like he's an educated fella. It looks like he's a normal guy like us and everything. And yet you can kind of see his stress. You can see his sorrow, his troubles that he has. And that's what the passage today is going to talk about. So it's pretty good. Now we start off with Ecclesiastes 1 verse 12. And he says, I, the preacher, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem. So depending on your translation, some may say Koheleth or something, and there's all this confusion with everything I read. There's, like I said last week, I noted, there's as many different interpretations, if not more, to Ecclesiastes as the book of Revelation. There really is a lot of different directions people go. And I am a firm believer from everything I studied and looked at, from what the Bible says. I believe what the Bible says. I, the preacher. Who is this? It's King Solomon. Okay, who was king over Jerusalem? Originally, verse 1 started, you know, son of David. You know, who was son of David and king? It was King Solomon. Who was the man with all the wisdom, wisest man that ever lived? King Solomon. And I really do believe this entire book was written by King Solomon. So he introduces himself as the author once again. I don't buy that Koheleth is a different fellow. If anything, the Koheleth was King Solomon trying to come off his pedestal as a king and be with the people right on their level to teach them, just as like I'm one of you, and type of picture right there, like a more familiar setting rather than the king demanding and telling. It's like him coming down and just pointing out as a teacher, hey, this is what life is about and this is what happens in life. Very philosophical book. But even if you don't like philosophy, you still think philosophy. You know, we all think philosophically. We all think about different things. We ask the question why, and that's where we go with those kind of things. So that's where this book is heavy with that. All right, so we go to the next verse. It says, and I set my mind to seek and explore by wisdom concerning all that has been done under heaven. It is a grievous task which God has given to the sons of men to be afflicted with. Think about that. When you're trying to figure things out, it says that it's a grievous task that God gave to us to be afflicted with. You know, affliction is affliction. That's not something nice. None of us like to be afflicted, okay? Afflicted like having a thorn in your foot when you're in your yard, you know? Afflicted like, you know, having something that's bothering you, having troubled you. And it says that this is what God gave to us to be afflicted with, you know, to try to figure out what's going on under heaven, what's going on in our world, what's going on in our lives. And truly, we also see with this, you know, this God is given, that God has ordained everything in life, especially in the sense that he permits it. So everything that goes on in this world has been ordained by God in one sense or another, the good and the bad. And that's, a lot of people don't like to, they try to picture that all the bad is just from the devil, it's all the devil. Who made the devil? That's a bigger philosophical question. God made the devil. Who could snuff the devil out in a heartbeat? God could. God has his purposes, and even if it's in the sense that he permits something, in the bigger sense, he also ordains it, and of everything. And the key is accepting what God has ordained rather than struggling against it. Some people, they just want to try to flee this. Really, I tell you all the time, I am absolved with the sovereignty of God. Some people, it's too much for them. Okay, to me, it's such a beautiful thing. I can't see enough of it right there. And you think about the sovereignty of God, and some people, there's a quote from an old Puritan that said the most difficult doctrine for man to accept is the sovereignty of God. That God is 100% in control all the time. And most people, they want to say, okay, God's in control of the good things. God's in control of, this and that. Like I remember last week when I preached and I kind of made a word picture, and I said maybe in life, maybe 10% is really positive and good, and 90% is really troubling and sad and like bad even, when you look at it. And we got to be able to look at everything. We can't just, blind our eyes to only the good, and we don't want to blind our eyes to only the bad. Then we really have trouble right there, right? But truly, when you realize the sovereignty of God, that every single thing in this world is going on because God in his power has permitted, that he is in control, that there's nothing that can absolutely happen, not one single thing that God has not allowed to bring about. It breaks things a whole lot bigger, and it puts your faith into God rather than struggling and blaming Satan or blaming the devil or blaming somebody else. And it doesn't go anywhere. It's a dead end when you go down that route. But God is God, and the world is the way that it is, okay? It's the way that it is. We all like to change a lot of things in this world, but it is the way that it is, okay? He's the one who created it. He's the one in charge of it. Sovereign grace is what we see throughout this passage, and we'll do well to accept what God has given. And the one guy read about this, he said, sovereign grace with more of an emphasis on sovereign than in grace is what we see within this passage. Because when we think grace, we think really good things, right? But here we're really going to see there's a lot of sovereignty that God has shown us in this passage as well, too. And it surely is not an easy task to learn. I can think about, just recently I'm talking a lot about it. It's not done yet, but soon my whole doctorate degree will be done, and when will I be happy? But I sat on that for a long time because it was so hard for me to try to figure out how I was going to do my big dissertation, how I was going to do that. And then when I really started to push into it, it was like as if you've ever worked out and you're trying to push in those last repetitions, and it's so hard. That's the way it was on my brain. All right, it was so hard on my brain. And I bet if you can think about learning in school or learning something at your job or learn different things, sometimes it's like you've got to over-apply yourself just to be able to go forward. And when you do, it hurts your brain. It's like, it's not something pleasant. You wish you could just set that aside and move on. Watch the TV, do something you like to do. But it's important that we do grow and we do learn. And learning is often not easy. It's not an easy task, okay? Really, if you think about the natural law of things, if you think about what's easy and what's not easy, it's not easy to learn a lot, to grow a lot, to study a lot. It's not easy. Those are hard things to do. But it's things that it's important for us to do as well. It's part of the way to wisdom. We don't get wisdom unless we study, unless we dig deep. We won't have any wisdom. And it's the Bible all the time, even though this passage may make it sound wisdom pretty bad. I didn't pull out a lot of the other passages that says, with everything you do, get wisdom. Whatever you do, get knowledge. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. The beginning of knowledge is the fear of the Lord, the Bible tells us. So it's not something, even though it's a grievous task, it's something that we should be doing our best to not do, but yet it's something that we have to do, and it's not an easy task. And the Bible says it itself. It's not an easy task, is what we see. And then it says, I have seen all the works which have been done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity, and striving after the wind. And, think about this. I really do believe, as this one guy, Benjamin Shaw, pointed out in his little book about life in a fallen world. An excellent book. Oh, is it so good. I highly recommend it. Oh, do I recommend it. I'm reading it through again, okay, after I've read it through before. But here, and with some other books too, but here we see that King Solomon, the writer, as it started in this passage right here, likely He became king. He lived as king. He messed up as king. Okay, he was one of the richest men that ever lived. Okay, it was under King Solomon that the temple was built, that his house was built. If you read the Bible, it took a lot longer to build his house than it did to build the temple. And you should think, this doesn't seem quite right. I'm talking years and years and years. I don't have it right down in my head, but I think it was something like 14 years. I don't know. It was a long time to build the king's palace. Could you imagine the work and the money and the taxes and the labor and all of the stuff for the pomp, for the luxury, okay? And the Lord's house took a while, and there was a lot of delicate things, like they would bang stones like out in the quarry to make everything a perfect fit. So it was like a sense of a holiness, solitude as they put the temple together, as they respected the Lord. But yet that only took half the time as the king's house took. And then the king, if you read the book Song of Songs, which I really believe is about love, about physical love between a man and a woman. Others have taken it to mean other things these days, but I think if you read it for what it is, it's between a man and a woman. And that was probably Solomon's first wife before he got 1,000 more. I'm sure that poor girl, with all the love and all the wonder you see in that book, didn't feel the same way some years afterwards as he got all these other wives and harems and things like this. And the Bible even says that Solomon had a great fall. And it talks about how he amassed all these wives, and a lot of them were pagans, like, from false religions and things. And he allowed them to have their temples and allowed them to have their worship. All things totally against what God would never want, that he's told us. He said we're not supposed to be unequally yoked. The old to the new, all God's words are always the same. It goes back and forth, and you can see in all these places. So he messed up, and he did all these things with his life, and he truly did see all these things done under the sun. And what does he say after all this in his life? Everything's vanity. It's just a striving after the wind. He had it all. He was on the top. He was the Bill Gates, whoever the richest men you can think of. The what? Elon Musk, okay? He was the Elon Musk of his day and then some right there. He had it all, and you know what? He didn't have any peace about it. In fact, we're going to see it in the next chapter. He even says he had it all and he hated life. He had everything and he hated life. So all that stuff, all these things he searched out for, wasn't where the answer to peace and happiness was found. And we can see that refusing to accept reality can only result in happiness, unhappiness, and weariness, okay? So if we refuse to accept what reality really is, we're really going to be unhappy, and we're really going to be very weary. People with the power of positive thought, that's a bad thing, okay? Don't hold on to that. If you got caught up with that stuff before, Vincent Norman Peale and the Cathedral of Praise with Robert Schuller and Rick Warren and all these other positive thought folks right there. Take that out of your mind and just dump it in the trash, okay? Because that's where that stuff belongs. The book of Ecclesiastes points out that it's not about the power of positive thought, okay? Wisdom is about, you have to look at everything to really get smart about things. And as you do, you see trouble. You don't find peace in looking at everything. But indeed, if we don't, where are we? We're also going to be unhappy if we don't accept reality. And we're also going to be very weary, okay? And I wrote in parentheses, since the wind cannot be caught, however hard to chase. Just imagine going outside and trying to capture a sample of wind, all right? It sounded like in the Army, some of you guys were in the military in here, I know you. And in the Army, if you remember, sometimes when you get a new private and you're a young guy in the Army, you'd be like, hey, go get this box of grid squares. And what's a box of grid squares? Like grids on the map, There's no box of grid squares anywhere. It's just something that you measure how you travel and things. Or there was like a joke about the Prick 77. I forget what that was, but it was a radio. Yeah, go find a Prick E7, they'd say. And the E7 is Sergeant First Class in charge of the platoon. You really get in trouble when you go say something like this. I mean, it's derogatory, but that's ain't above it. But things in the Army kind of like a little derogatory. But they say all these things to mess with fellas, and they think, I got to go do it, because otherwise I'll have to do push-ups and everything, and it's kind of like a joke. But it would be the same way if you told somebody to, hey, go get a sample of the wind. Get a sample of the wind to bring it here so we can examine where does this wind come from? Where does it go? And what makes it all work? it wouldn't work at all. It'd be just as bad as just striving after the wind. And that's what he's pointing out, that even though he's seen all this stuff under the sun, it's all just trying to grab it all to try to find peace. It is just like trying to grab the wind. You're not going to be able to do it. There's not an answer for it. And I'll tell you, there's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of psychological books written promising all these things. There's a lot of theological books. I should say theological with parentheses, bad theological books, promising all the world and all these things. Just read this book and everything's going to be fine in your life and everything will be wonderful. All right. It makes me think there's a Paul Washer, there's like a Facebook meme I saw a long time ago between Paul Washer and Joel Osteen. And Joel Osteen once wrote a book, said that your best life now. Like, you buy this book, you're going to live your best life right now. And then it has a picture of Paul Washer saying, your worst life now. And Paul Washer's a good biblical teacher. I endorse Paul Washer. I like Paul Washer. And the point is, like, you could break that down in a whole lot of things, but it really is our worst life now. Truly, if you're a Christian, this is the closest to hell you're ever going to get, because there's sin, there's suffering, there's all this trouble and evil in this world. If you're not a Christian, then Joel Osteen's book probably is as true as it's going to be. You are at your best life now. It will never get better than what it is right now. And that's a sad, horrible thing. That's a thing that can drive people into depression. I bet you, if not properly studied, Ecclesiastes could probably make someone into a deep depression as they look at it, if they don't really study it truly through and through, okay? Fortunately, don't worry, there's light at the end of this talk today. All right, there's light, and it's beautiful light. It's Jesus Christ's light, okay? It's coming. All right, but here's what we see. And I have a Proverbs to show you some things, okay, about happiness, all right? It says, how blessed is the man, this is Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13 to 18. How blessed is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gains understanding. For her profit is better than the profit of silver, and her gain better than fine gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire compares with her. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her, and happy are all who hold her fast. So even though King Solomon has talked about how vain and vanity it is getting wisdom, and how there's just more grief found in that wisdom, we also see, maybe he wrote this proverb too. I mean, I have a hard time differentiating all through Proverbs what he wrote, but he wrote a lot of Proverbs, okay? And when we went through the book of Proverbs, I was surprised how many Proverbs are really ascribed by the scholars to King Solomon. So we're not saying that it's not smart to get wisdom, to get knowledge, to get understanding. Truly, on a side note, I've said it before, but I think it's important to remember, the book of Proverbs tells us how to live life in this world, okay? Left to right. How do we get along with our fellow man? How do we get around in this world? How do we have a good life here and now? All right? As best as you can. The book of Psalms is different. That's about our relationship with God, our vertical relationship with God. So here we see, blessed is the man who finds wisdom. So I wrote at the top, far from producing all that happiness and prosperity, wisdom has several handicaps with which those who quest after it must reckon. All right, and if you read if you were here for last week's sermon, we talked about those handicaps, and it shows our human inability to catch the meaning of life. No matter how hard we try as a human being to catch the meaning of life, you're not going to catch it. It's going to be like trying to catch the wind. If you're trying to catch the meaning of life with everything that you possibly can in this world, it's like trying to catch the wind. 1 Kings 3:9 talks about what Solomon says here. So give your servant, is this what Solomon prayed to God? Okay, when God was ordaining him as king over Israel and choosing him, this was his prayer. So give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? So Solomon didn't ask for long life or riches or for the lives of his enemies, and it pleased God. That's what the next verse, verse 10 and verse 11 says. They want to put them all up here for you. But when Solomon became king, who's the author of Ecclesiastes, he asked for wisdom. And wisdom to be able to lead, to judge the people, to be able to be a good king. He didn't ask for himself, and he didn't ask for, for all these things. God does give it to him, though. So then this is what God says. Behold, I have done according to your words. Behold, I have given you a wise and discerning heart, so that there has been no one like you before, nor shall one like you arise after you. So we see that God gave him his request, and he said nobody would ever have as much wisdom as Solomon. So the guy who wrote Ecclesiastes was the wisest man who ever lived. So you can't think, okay, well, this was this guy's point of view. Well, he kind of missed the boat. I read this other book by Joel Osteen. I read this other book by Robert Schuller or Norman Peale, and I know this isn't the way. This over here's the way. No, Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived. Doesn't mean he wasn't going to mess up and sin. He had great sins and messed up too. But he was a smart, wise man. And I wrote on here, Solomon was whose wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the men of the East and all the wisdom of Egypt. It was who spoke 3,000 proverbs and whose songs were 1,005. That's what it says in the Bible in 1 Kings 4:30 and 32, is that he was smarter than everybody and more wisdom. And we don't even have all these proverbs written down. We don't have 3,000 proverbs in the Bible. 3,000 proverbs, and he's had songs for 1,005. Imagine if we had the songbook of King Solomon. That'd be cool too. You know, what was the songbook of King Solomon? All right, we're going back here. What is crooked cannot be straightened, and what is lacking cannot be counted. So this is just like Ecclesiastes 7:14, which I have a book that I'm going to read before I hit there. That the whole book was written by a Puritan, is about what God has made crooked, is what 7:14 says. Not just what became crooked, that God made it crooked can't be straightened. And wisdom cannot change reality. Wisdom can analyze better than prescribed solutions. So with wisdom, we can kind of see what's going on, but we can't always find an answer. You know, we can look at things in our lives, things that happen around us, and with wisdom, we can kind of figure out what's going on. But can we fix it? Can we answer it? It's not that easy to fix things right there. I think there's a lot of things, if you think about it in your own life, things that you pray for, people you pray for to come to the Lord, different things, and you wish you could change something. You wish you could do something. It's a lot easier for us to look and to analyze and be like, this is exactly what that person needs, or this is exactly what needs to happen. And then to try to make it happen is a whole different thing. Sometimes we just can't do it. And it's so stressful for us. It brings us back to the grievance. It makes us grieve because we know what things should be, and yet we can't make an answer right here. All right? I said to myself, behold, I have magnified and increased wisdom more than all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my mind has observed the wealth of wisdom and knowledge. And so here he's talking to himself, King Solomon, and he says that he knew more than everybody else. And this isn't pride. This is the Word of God. Okay, this is the Holy Spirit inspired Word of God. This is the truth. Solomon knew more than everybody else had ever known. He had the greatest mind. If you think about guys with IQ, and sometimes you'll hear about some guy has like an IQ of I don't know what's the highest one, but like 170 or 150. I don't know what's up there, but there's numbers that are way up there, okay? I know from the Army, my IQ was like 111. If the GT score or something was the same, that's not that high, okay? It's not that high. I do the best I can what I got. But some fellas, it used to be special forces, you had to have like a minimum of 110, so I just barely squeaked in. But then they needed more folks, and they said, okay, minimum's 100. And I knew a fellow one time that was an 89 when I was in basic training, and that guy seemed playing handicapped. And he was a good guy too. But this is what I'm saying. I'm saying, think about this. Some folks have this extreme wisdom, they're just so smart, and everybody notices it, and you're just like, I am amazed at how smart you are, okay? And he was smarter than those guys were. So think about this. Think if there was an IQ scale, he'd probably at the 300 level, even if it goes off the scale at 170 or wherever it goes off the scale at. And the word in the Hebrew that's used for brain usually is heart. So some of your versions may say, I said in my heart. That's what it may say in your version, because there is no word for brain in the Hebrew language. So when you read your Bibles and you read the word heart, a lot of times what it means is it means your brain. It means your thoughts. It means your thinking right there. So when you say something comes from the heart, okay, it comes from your thoughts. It comes from your mind. Don't think it comes from some mysterious place that you don't hardly able to tap into or know about, okay? And he talks to himself just like in Psalm 42. In Psalm 42, if you read that, he says, why are you so cast down, O my soul? He's talking to himself and he's like, why am I so depressed? Why is everything so bad? And what does the psalmist do? He says, put your hope in God. Put your hope in God. And that's what the psalmist does. This is what we should do too. When you read those psalms, those are like examples of prayers that you can pray to God. You can take that psalm, you can open it up, and you can say, this is from me to God. I'm going to pray this right now to God. It's beautiful to pray the psalms as prayers to God. But that's what the psalmist did too. That's what he does here. He's speaking to himself. And he says, and he ties between wisdom, knowledge, and the fear of the Lord. It equals the comprehension of God's will. So as he's trying to get smarter, he's trying to have wisdom and knowledge, and he's trying to fear God, he's trying to comprehend what God's will is. And I set my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. And I realize that this also is striving after the wind. And wisdom cannot offer release from the evil business of living. No matter how much you know, there is evil business in this world. Evil business all around us, all the time. And the folly does not mean a low IQ, okay? When he says madness and folly is what he's studying, it doesn't matter. He's studying like the fellow I knew that was a nice guy but had a GT score 89 that I just thought, man, the guy's handicapped. And he's in the infantry, all right? But there were guys way above me too, okay? So maybe other fellas thought about me like that. I don't know. I hope not, but God bless them if they did. But the thing is folly, what it means is living sinful outside of God's set pattern, okay? That's what folly or foolishness means. Think of our world today. How much folly is living outside of God's set pattern today. Talk about how messed up marriage is, okay? They don't know marriage is supposed to be between a man and a woman like people of all time have known, except for now. All of a sudden, they don't know that anymore. They're going against God's set pattern. They're going against nature itself. And that is what foolishness is. That's what folly is, to go against God's set pattern. And where can we find more God's set pattern? In the Word of God, in the Bible. That's where we find the truth of God and His pattern, His truth. And Solomon left no viewpoint unexplored, is what he's saying. So he's saying he looked into the minds of madness. He looked into the minds of those who don't follow the ways of God. And he tried to figure out and understand why they think the way they think. Why they do the way they do. And I tell you, it's truly true, and I think it's very smart. It's a big part of wisdom. If you don't understand somebody, try to see something from their perspective. Try to understand, why are they doing what they're doing? Why are they saying what they're saying? What brings this about? I mean, a lot of times you can see somebody that's like some kind of prisoner, crazy madman. You can look into his childhood or something, and you can be like, golly, did that guy have a troubled childhood? Or golly, did that guy have a lot of brokenness around him? And you can start to understand something better. You know, heck, even look at today's time. Look at Russia with Putin. Think about Putin. Think about he's basically made himself a Tsar. What happens when a Tsar goes out of power? He's murdered. He's killed. You know, so when you think about him, and you think of his madness, what's driving a lot of that madness is he knows that death is coming if he doesn't succeed. You know, if he doesn't go in the bad way that he's went, he's got no other answer besides death. And when you think about these things, you understand things a little bit more, okay? Can't fix it. You know, it doesn't, like, leaves us grievous because we're like, well, what are we going to do now? Because even though he's doing horrible things, killing thousands of people, but yet you can kind of see these kind of things, and we can look at that as we leave no viewpoint unexplored, and we try to think about this with other folks. And also it'll help us to understand and communicate with other people when we do that. And it says, this is my last verse too. Look at this. We're already at the last verse. Because in much, last verse for the book of Ecclesiastes. I got like one more to show you. All right. Because in much wisdom there is much grief. And increasing knowledge results in increasing pain. So the more knowledge you get, the more pain you'll have. I mean, that sounds like rough, but remember I read you the verse before in Proverbs about it's better than going after silver or gold. It's more profitable than anything, gaining wisdom. But yet when you do get all this wisdom, what are you going to get? More pain in your life, okay? Why? Because you're really looking into the face of reality. It's like, think about maybe if you had some binoculars and there was something wonderful going on down the street, and on the other side of the street there's like a riot and burning and looting and horrible things. And think maybe if you were the mayor or something of the city and you're over there looking at all the wonderful stuff. But with wisdom, what do? You've got to look, oh my, what's going on over there? And that's what happens when we have wisdom, when we get knowledge. We really do see the full picture in this life. We see the brokenness. We see the hurt. We see the pain in this life, and we don't escape it. And we can feel a whole lot more pain as we look at all this. I wrote at the top, wisdom and knowledge dispel illusions and make clear the evil business of living. Because if you get wisdom and knowledge, you can't live in a fake, made-up fairy tale world. It can't change reality. But it can't bring the song into tune. All right, I love this analogy, especially since I'm a guy that usually doesn't have a song that's in tune. No matter how hard I try to sing well, like at the hospital I work, we're allowed to sing sometimes. If the nun's not doing it, then I do it. And there, a guy last week, his name's Jack. I was in the cafeteria, and Jack's a great big guy. I know he's a surgeon. What he does, he's always in the surgeon clothes. And he said, "How you doing, Buck?" He goes, "I got one request from you, that you don't sing anymore on the intercom, because this is killing us. It's killing us." That's what he says to me. And I was with another fellow who decided we should be playing, hymns or songs or something over your professional. And I was like, man, do I try hard though? Do I love to sing those hymns and those songs? But this is what the fella told me. And I think that's kind of like this example is no matter how much wisdom, no matter how much knowledge we get, it doesn't bring our song into tune. It doesn't make us sing beautiful, okay? And there are beautiful singers out there. There's no doubt about that. I'll use this example from people like me, all right? After that guy's comment, I did have a chance even that night. All of a sudden, it was my opportunity. And I played one of the hymns that we play and sing in church here. I found on my Spotify, and I played it over, I think, How Firm a Foundation I played for the whole hospital here. And so they listened. And I waited about a minute and a half because it's not appropriate. I have too long over the intercom, and then I clicked it off and thanked him. But that guy was probably happy. He tried to say, he complimented me on that the other day at lunch when the nun was there, and he says, "And you need to watch her singing." I thought, oh, no, don't crush her. She loves to sing. She loves to sing. But that's what he said. But this is what it is. It can't bring our song into tune, okay? And here's something. I hope I don't traumatize you guys. I'm always thinking of crazy stuff. My wife doesn't like hearing all my crazy stuff, I think, sometimes. I got this example of clubbing the sheep, okay? Yes. But this is a good example. I read this in the book, all right? There was once a fellow who was a professor, okay? He was a college professor, and times were tough. And he had to make money. He had to make money to survive, to support his family. So he had to go to working on the railroad. And on the railroad, the job he got was being with the sheep and transporting the sheep from one destination to another destination. Now, sheep, even though they look pretty and nice, and you hear ba ba, and they look all nice with all their woolly stuff, people eat sheep, okay? They're food for a lot of folks. And you know what they do on the railroad is when they get off to the last stop, as the guys take them to go to the slaughterhouse, they're not going to find a shepherd herder and stuff and work that. They hit them real hard. They club them, and it knocks them out until they go to the slaughterhouse. And he said as he would sit there, because he had all this wisdom and knowledge, and he was more of a refined type of fellow, all right? He was more like maybe the folks in here that are hearing this and thinking, oh man, Buck, the things he talks about, they're a little more refined, and he didn't like thinking about that. And as he was sitting in the railroad car for a long distance, he thought, these poor sheep, they're so wonderful, they're so nice, they're so happy. And he thought, why are they so happy? Because they have no idea. They have no wisdom, no knowledge, and no understanding of what's about to happen when we come to the last stop. that some big burly looking fellas are going to come out with clubs and they're going to not be on anymore. All right, and that is the truth. Okay, is when you learn, when you know more wisdom, you get more knowledge. You get even more grief because you know what's going to happen. I tell you, as a Christian, as a fellow that really believes in the sovereignty of God, as I keep reading the Bible and I see it on every page and I see it throughout, I see that life is not guaranteed. Things in this life are not guaranteed. Special things, family, all kinds of stuff in this life. We all want health and safety, and we all want to live to be like 90 years old and be healthy as we go to 90 years old and all this stuff. It's not guaranteed, okay? Death comes at all ages. It comes in all places in life. And there's so much brokenness, and there's so much hurt, and there's truly such frailty as you gain more wisdom and knowledge about the world, about everything. My boy is learning how to drive, and he's doing a pretty good job at it. But that always scares me so much because I think I don't want him to get in some horrible accident, whether he causes it or somebody else causes it. Because I have wisdom and knowledge to know accidents happen. Bad things happen in this world, okay? Even my daughter, every time my daughter pulls out the driveway, I pray. I pray, God, please protect her, watch over her, keep her safe in the midst of this world that we have. And yet I know that none of us are promised life forever. Every one of us is going to go, and we don't even know when we're going to go. So what does? It increases pain in me, it increases grief in me, because I know what reality really is in this world, because I look at the whole picture, and because I live it, and because I don't deny it. And these are things that we see that Solomon talked about. But here's my hope. Here's my hope. It should be your hope too. Okay? Look at this. This is the hope. Connects to Solomon as well. Jesus said this about Solomon. He says in Matthew 12:42, the queen of the south will rise up with this generation at the judgment and will condemn it, because she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, something greater than Solomon is here. So who's got even greater wisdom than Solomon? Jesus. Jesus had more wisdom than Solomon. And Jesus recognized Solomon's wisdom because Jesus is God. Jesus is the one that gave him his wisdom right here. But there's one who's even more greater in wisdom than Solomon with all these things. And thankfully, we have so much to look forward to. This is where our hope is. This is where our grievances, our fears, our hurts, our pains, and everything should find healing and should find wholeness is in Jesus Christ. Without Jesus Christ, everything I preached and just showed you guys, as Solomon said, it is exactly spot on. And that is all that anything's ever going to be. The smartest man in the world with the greatest IQ that we could think about, that you could think about, richest man, if he doesn't know Christ, in the end, it's all vanity. It's all just a waste. It's all just as wasteful as anything else is wasteful. Just another thing on the garbage dump that will be remembered no more one day. But with Christ is everything. I wrote, we move beyond futility, beyond vanity, beyond whatever word you want to use for Hebel, and to a pearl of true wisdom is in Jesus Christ. And I have a couple boring slides. I hope I don't lose you. There's only a few, and we're really done, okay? I'm getting done earlier today, I promise. The human tendency is to try to shape reality in our own image rather than receive it already shaped by God. People are all trying to see and perceive something differently than the way God has already done it. Isn't it more beautiful to look at the real image that God gives rather than a made-up, make-believe, fantasy, fairy tale? Some people probably think that about us. They think, well, that's your religion. That's your theological spectacles that you look at everything through, that you chose yourself, that you made, that you like right there. That's not what it is, okay? If any of us are here just because we think we should choose this to be a little better, man, we got to do some serious heart searching and see what a waste and vanity that is right there. We're looking for genuine truth, genuine answer, and it's only found in Jesus Christ. There's a thing called a meta-narrative, okay? These are big words that, if somebody told me, what's a meta-narrative book? I thought, I don't know, I've heard the word. But here now I know, okay? You know what the meta-narrative is? The meta-narrative is the greater story that embraces and explains all other stories with facts, wisdom, and knowledge. And the meta-narrative is the gospel. Without the gospel, all of life is meaningless. Without Jesus Christ, it is meaningless. It is the meta-narrative. It's the greater story. The absence of the greater story brings the perception of frustration and pain in our reality. And we all know frustration and pain. And we all sometimes forget the gospel, forget the hope. I tell you what, I've told you before, illustration, a picture in my mind. I'm a word picture type of guy, I guess. Maybe people say, how you learn about word pictures? So that's how I teach too. But like I told you before, think of some guy in the desert and he's just dying and he's about to die of thirst and the sun's scorching him and he's just so miserable, and all of a sudden there's a real oasis with a nice cool pool that he can jump in, that he can drink water from, that he can find peace and relief. That's the gospel. And the gospel is so necessary. Without the gospel, all we're going to have in this world is frustration and pain. And it's the way God made it. As we read this, it says God's the one that made things crooked. God's the one that made the world like it is today. And why? I think, just like we talked through Galatians, is that the law is the teacher, the schoolmaster, to beat you into submission, to cause you to fall to your knees and be like, I can't do it, Lord. I need you, Jesus. You're the only hope. You're the only way. I can only find it in Jesus Christ. And the absence of the greater story brings the perception, frustration, and pain in our reality, and that greater story is the gospel. Wisdom derived independently of the greater story is no wisdom at all. You can see in Genesis 3, when they ate from that tree and the devil promised Eve that she'd be like God, that she would know things. It was like the secret fruit, whatever it was. We don't know for sure it was an apple, okay? That just was the close word in Latin that Jerome used. It never was apple, okay? Apple's just what we think maybe, but it could have been anything. Could have been a plum, okay? Who knows what kind of fruit this was right here, okay? Could have been a fruit we don't like to eat. I don't know. Could have been a delicious fruit. But here's the thing. Is when they ate that fruit and they thought they were going to get wisdom, what did they get? They got naked and ashamed. That's what they got from getting that wisdom. They got grief. They got pain because it wasn't what God wanted. It wasn't toward God. It was something less than God. And even in Solomon's fall, in 1 Kings 1:1-11, which I didn't put up here because I thought that'd be over-preaching you guys. And it said, that's a really sad story. If you want to read the negative part about Solomon, read 1 Kings 1:1-11. It talks about how he got all these wives and went these other ways, and the Spirit of the Lord departed from him. And it's just such a sad thing. Thank God, I think that this wasn't the end of Solomon, that Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes. But this is what happened when he departed from God's wisdom. Bad stuff came. Pain came. Frustration. All these things. Wisdom is only found in Jesus Christ. It's only found in the gospel for the true end of wisdom. The more does not exist. And in pursuing that, we lose ourselves. If we're always thinking, I just need a little bit more and everything will be okay. It's a fantasy. It's a fairy tale. You're making make-believe, and it's your life you're dealing with, and your life is precious. You only got a little bit of time in your life to live your life when you look at the big picture. There's lots of illusions and delusions available today. As I've been on my rant, CNN, that's your illusions and your delusions, okay? Just turn on CNN and you'll see illusions and delusions being shown all the time, okay? The old days most daily face the harsh realities of life, okay? Think about a long time ago. I think even maybe you watch those old westerns, all right? In America, somebody living on the plain and the dust and the dirt, and they got maybe their one sheep and their one goat and their one pig, I think I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. Maybe I'm making crazy analogies, but think of the movie The Unforgiven. And William Money, after his time of being a bad criminal and stuff, and he's out there and he's just got him and his son or something, and his wife's passed on, and he hardly has anything, and he's trying to go after the pigs, and he falls in the mud, and he's old and he's broken, and he's doing the best he can, right? Have you guys ever seen the movie Unforgiven? There's some good parts in that movie. It's my type of movie, let me tell you. It is everybody's type of movie. But you see how poor some folks are. You see how hard it is for some folks. It's not like folks today. And folks back then that were peasants weren't like kings and queens. They couldn't live this kind of life. Today, all of us can live the lives of kings and queens. Okay, every one of us today is living like a king and a queen, and they couldn't even pursue anything else. And kings and queens, they can pretend like the bad's not there. The reality's not there because they just kind of can fall into this fantasy world. The peasants, the William Moneys, when they were old and broken down, they couldn't pretend to like things like that. They did what they could just to survive, and the reality was in their face. Modern days are full to the brim with illusion and delusion. Politicians do not get elected unless they promise this goal can be achieved. Unless the politician promises he's going to do all this stuff and fix everything. How has that been for us so far? Which politician has ever fixed everything? So sure, we like some better than others, but none of them have we been pleased with 100% of the way or have fixed everything. And some of them we're like, oh my, we should really be ashamed that we have this fellow or something, right? All right? People pursue ways of getting ahead to a paradise that does not exist. There's only one paradise that exists, and it's called heaven. And the only way to get to heaven is by believing in Jesus Christ in the gospel. That's the only paradise. There is no other paradise. There is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, okay? I mean, think about it. If we had a lot of time on our hands, a lot of assets, and we saw a rainbow, and we were some serious Irishmen that really believed that, and we searched all day for the pot of gold, I know what would happen. We wouldn't find it. We might find something else cool along the way. We wouldn't find that pot of gold. Those who have pursued wisdom and knowledge the most have found how limited all of this is. And it makes me think, how many philosophers killed themselves? How many of them went to the asylum, the insanity asylum, at the end of their days? If you like philosophy and you dig deep and you research about these guys' lives that are quoted all the time, a lot of them went to the asylum or did suicide before the end of their life. And yet they were supposedly some of the smartest men who ever lived. So where does all that wisdom and knowledge get you? Grief and pain, unless you have Jesus Christ. That's the only place for the end of this wisdom. How to enjoy life now, okay? I wish I could talk to Joel Osteen. I sent him this slide. I texted to him, right? Send it right over to him. Life is to be designed to be lived in humility and obedience before God. That's how you enjoy life right now. By being a good Christian. By truly obeying and following Jesus and being humble before Him. Enjoying the ordinary things of life and finding satisfaction in them, okay? Like some good food. Now, don't eat food so much that you kill yourself, okay? I gotta watch that. I don't know if you've seen me on potluck. I know last chili potluck, I had 9 bowls of chili. I thought, I gotta try. I took the little bowl, but let me tell you, the little bowl still has some food in it. I never would think that. But that 9th bowl, I don't think I finished it to the last spoonful right there. It was hard. I did eat some of it, at least half of it, 9th bowl. But it was hard. But we got to be careful we don't over-enjoy things. We got to take things in moderation, okay? But it's those ordinary things in life, find satisfaction in them. And as we walk in this life, we will be surprised by joy. And I have that in quotation marks. If anybody's a reader here, C.S. Lewis wrote a book called Surprised by Joy. And Joy was the name of his wife right there. And he only had her for a few years before she died of cancer. But he loved his wife dearly. And it was a special book. It's so good to read. But this is what will happen. We'll end up being surprised by joy. If we can just start to learn to enjoy those little ordinary things in this life. And we have the gospel. We have the hope. In the end, it is those who have enjoyed the ordinary things in this life that will gain. Those who have found joy will have greater joy. And death will bring eternal life. You know, there's some folks I know. There's a guy in here today that tells me so. That sometimes when you get older, if you really know the Lord, you actually look forward to dying. You look forward to taking your last breath. Because you know where you're going to be the moment after you take it. And you've already lived this grievous, troubled life with all the realities and the hurts and the pains and all the bad stuff like we talked about. And you know that there is a pot of gold. There's something so much more than a pot of gold when you take your last breath and you go to be with Jesus Christ. And I tell you, that's the way to live life right there. And death brings eternal life, and in the end, your joy just keeps getting greater and greater than heaven. I'm sure joy is pretty much all you ever feel, okay? It says there's no more sorrow, there's no more sadness, there's no more tears. We can't even imagine that, because that's all we can familiar with. Even if you try to be a best life now, a power positive thinking person, you still know there's a lot of sorrow and pain and hurt in this world. But it's hard for us to imagine that one day there will be no more like that, because that's how Jesus has created heaven. And this is my last slide. And my question to you is Jesus your Lord and Savior? This is often my question to you. And it's such an important question. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Is He your master? Is He your Lord? Do you serve Him? Do you submit to Him? Do you believe in Him? Do you follow Him and obey Him? And Savior, do you know that He can forgive you of all of your sins? If you believe in Him, washed everything away and make you perfect before His eyes. That He has done that and will do that for all those who have faith in Him. And my question also is, are you still trying to find wisdom elsewhere about this life? You know, how long can you go? How many things are you going to go to until you realize, you know what? You know, I've searched it all, and you're like King Solomon, and there's nothing good about any of it. It's all vanity. Vanity is vanity. Without Christ, though, you will only have more sorrows ahead. That's a sure promise. With Jesus as a Christian, no more sorrows. Without Jesus as a Christian, without Jesus, with life without Christ, no matter how much you ever learn or grow or become in this world, hell awaits, fire awaits, pain awaits, gnashing of teeth, outer darkness, okay? All kinds of horrible descriptions await for those who don't have Christ. Things don't get better at the end of the day. Things get far worse at the end of the day. The picture of how things are, the picture of Murphy's Law. Okay, I know Murphy's Law well. All right? If something can go wrong, it'll go wrong. As we get older, we expect that, and we try to do things in between so it doesn't happen that way, okay? I know last year, around this time, praise God, am I getting strong now again? But around this time, I tripped at the gas station in the morning going to work and had to call my wife from the hospital saying I'm in the hospital and I'm all messed up. And I thought everything was going all right and just tripped. It wasn't even icy. It was like this type of weather almost. A little chillier than this, but this type of weather, okay? And think about this. So now what do I do? Since I know Murphy's Law, all these things will go wrong. Man, do I watch how I step. I see this cord right here. I'm like, I got to be aware of this, okay? I see other people walking. Oh, watch out. Don't fall down. I see these things. And I probably seem like an old man now. But I don't want to have that happen to me again, okay? And I think as we grow older, we do become more aware. So we know things can go wrong. We try to do what we can to stop it from going wrong. But if you're not a Christian, if you don't have the gospel, things are going to get a whole lot worse ahead of you. It's a promise from God in the Bible. All right? The cross adds to what life lacks. Forgiveness can only be found in Jesus Christ. Okay, this is a beautiful passage, but I'm not going to go into it right now. But 1 Corinthians 1:18-25 talks about how God has taken the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And that truly it's all in the power of the cross. That this is the ultimate answer for everything, is in Jesus Christ. Jesus has settled our debt to God. He has charted our direction in life. He has sorted out our confused values. He has freed our enslaved spirits. He's done it all. Christ is the meaning of happiness of all of life. Without Christ, all is meaningless. So think about this. You know, meaningless is part of like the word vanity too, when you go into this whole Ecclesiastes thing. And life without Christ is meaningless. Life with Christ is full of meaning. The meaning is only found in Jesus Christ. With Him, everything is good. Makes me think of Genesis 1:31. How did God create everything? Very good. Very good is how God created the garden, how He made everything. It wasn't until sin came in that everything got cursed and was broken. And with this, I'm going to close, okay? And I'm going to say some prayers. So the boy's going to shut off my little video things, all right? And I'm going to write down some